about a month from now, the mother of all elections is going to happen in the United States of America. Pitted against each other in a very, very bitter fight are the former US President Donald Trump and the current Vice President of the country, Kamala Harris. Harris has replaced the US President Joe Biden in the presidential race, and that seems to have brightened the chances of the Democrats. On the other hand, Donald Trump, who has survived many assassination attempts, is counting on the public sympathy as well as the wave of Republican supporters in his favor. Who will occupy the White House come November depends on a host of issues. The women's support, the young support, the Midwestern states, and of course the issue of democracy. Over the next half an hour, CNN News 18 will take you across this huge country, from Washington to New York, to Delaware, and to San Francisco to gauge what is on the voters' mind. CNN News 18 starts this journey of the US from the seat of power, Washington, D.C., where everyone's eyes are on who will occupy the White House next. We are joined with a couple from Chicago who've come all the way to see the White House here. Sir, in about a month's time, we are looking at elections in the US. Yes. What do you think are the big issues in these elections? Who's your bet on? Who's going to win?
Well, it's a difficult choice for Americans, apparently. It's a very close race. We have no problem voting for Kamala Harris, who seems to us the only appropriate candidate with the issues of freedom and justice and righteousness and support for immigrants and the poor and just about everything you can think of. Where on the other side we have a reprobate, felon, spouse-abusing crook who is about as terrible a candidate as America has ever had. And that's kind of a shameful thing that he was once president and still may win because unlike India, we don't have a democracy here. It's not one person, one vote. Our little states sometimes have 2 senators, no matter how little they are. And a state like Illinois has only 2 senators. And that's not fair because we have 12 million people versus 500,000. Anyway, so we don't have as big or as an effective a democracy, I believe, as you folks enjoy right now. So it makes me very nervous, anxious, apprehensive that the polls show it's a virtual tie.
Since Kamala has entered the race, it seems the race has evened out a bit, after she replaced Joe Biden. Do you think America needs a woman president?
I think it's about time. I was extremely disappointed when Hillary lost, and it was all because of that Trump. And it's time for a woman to be president. So yes, we support Kamala all the way.
Trump has survived a couple of assassination attempts. Some people say there's a sympathy maybe in some section of the public for him. Do you think it'll work?
I think there is, but among his base, because mostly the shooters were people who looked and acted like him. They liked guns. They supported wild and crazy things. As far as we can tell, they were not politically motivated, certainly not by anybody in the Democratic Party. So if it gained sympathy, it wasn't from Democrats. I think it just maybe.
It didn't come from independents either. I think it's his base that will defend him no matter what. I mean, if he were the devil incarnate, they'd be behind him, which he is, actually.
So for some reason, they think God is on his side, or they believe his lies. It's a sad thing, but politicians play on those kinds of fears and prejudices that unfortunately permeate society, not just here, but all over the world. I assume you have it in India. We have it here.
So what is happening in your elections? Who's going to win, you think?
Well, we have a very unique time in our country. We have an incumbent in the Democrat Party, and the current president has decided not to run, and the vice president is now running. We also have a president that served in the 46th presidency who is now running for re-election. Very different policy positions, vastly different, and a lot of controversy in our country. with some people say that the Justice Department is attacking the old president unfairly, and other people say that the vice president now running for president actually pushed the president out. So we're having things in this country that we've never seen before in a presidential election.
What are the big issues in your mind in this election? What will people vote on? What is the biggest issue?
I think the biggest issue this election is inflation and cost of living. Everything is costing more, and that is a problem for every citizen. And if you think about it, the rich and wealthy, they don't have a problem. But the poor and the middle income and lower income people in this country, they have a big problem when they want to live and survive. So I think the biggest issue is going to be cost of living and inflation.
That is what Donald Trump is promising to change, isn't he?
He is, but people in public office make lots of promises. Some of them do come true. I know that when he was the president before, we had $2.20 a gallon gasoline. Now we have $4, $5, $6 gasoline. We didn't have the prices at the grocery store so high, and at a restaurant, now almost double. So we, my wife and I on vacation here, we want everyone to have a lower cost of living. So how do we do that as a nation? How do we do that? How do we slow down and change inflationary policies? So I'm interested in that, and I think many Americans are also. But also the world has got a lot of problems. We have wars in places in the world that we didn't have before. So we're concerned about, people say World War III. I don't want to scare people, but we have wars in the Middle East and Eastern Europe that we never had. And I think President Zelensky is here right now, visiting with the president right now in this, probably not right here, but maybe right now in here, talking about supporting Ukraine in the war with Russia, which is terrible for both countries.
If I could ask you one last question, who do you think is going to sit inside come November? Kamala or Trump?
You have a coin in your pocket, we'll flip it, because we do not know. This race is so close, we do not know.
We are in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America, and behind me you can see the famous Washington Monument. Talk to voters in the United States of America and they say that the preservation of democracy is an extremely important issue in these elections. Which president can keep the American democracy alive and thriving will be their choice come November. Well, on January 6, 2021, the supporters of Donald Trump had stormed the historic Capitol building, which you can see behind me, jumping over these lawns, climbing those stairs and breaking police barricades to enter the Capitol building and create absolute ruckus. One protester was killed in police firing, several policemen were injured, and damages worth millions was caused to this historic Capitol building. All this was because the supporters of Donald Trump wanted to scuttle the certification process of Joe Biden as the next US president, as Donald Trump had refused to accept the election results. Come November, will Donald Trump accept another defeat if it happens? This is the question top on the mind of the US voters. At the Capitol Hill, we are with a group of Americans who are here to see the Capitol. Elections are just about the corner. Next month, you'll be voting for who the next president of the United States should be. What do you think are the big issues in these elections, and who you think would be a better president?
I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that with such a divided nation, but I would say, women's rights are definitely on the table. While that's true, I do feel like it should not be in the hands of the president or the politics, and if we move that to the doctor's space, I think that would be much better.
Yeah, very good. And 3 years back, we are at the Capitol, and when Donald Trump lost, we saw supporters going through these lawns, going right up in the Capitol, creating ruckus. Those memories are still fresh in the minds of Americans, aren't they?
I would say so. I think it's something that's never really happened before, so it's very easy to point out and say and be surprised by it, really. And I feel like as a president, regardless of who wins or who loses, I think it's really just about having composure, because I think as a president, even if you lose, you still want to take it gracefully, right? Because you can't win every election, but you can still be a graceful person, have some humility, and support whoever comes on after you. But Yeah, politically, there's a lot of great things that can go on. I'm just hoping that economically, we can figure out a way to have a better economy that's fully recovered from the pandemic. I know that politicians like to say that we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but a lot of the times, because of our business structure, the way that we have things, the cost of goods, gas, and everything in between has gone up so much just due to the pandemic. There's really nothing a politician could have done because, again, it was a global pandemic. But I'm just hoping we can bounce back from that, and whichever president's in office, they can just do the best they can to make make life easier for everybody. Not the rich, not the poor, just everybody from top to bottom. Make it easier to live and make it comfortable.
Some people even tell me here, then I speak to Americans, that democracy is very important. The democratic values of this country should be protected. So when you have a Capitol Hill attack, democracy is in peril, great danger. Do you think Kamala Harris as a woman, is the country ready for a first woman president maybe? Has that time come?
I think so.
Absolutely. And I feel that enough division. We need to come together as one. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. And I hope people will think like that when they go to vote. That it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, but who is the best person to lead our country right now? And let's get back to peace. And let's get back to unification of what's best for our country.
Today in this train, we have a group of elder Americans with us who have seen many elections in the US, and this one being a tight election. So you must have seen many elections in the US. What is different about this one, and do you think it's a close race, and what are the big issues in these elections in America?
So yeah, I've seen a lot of elections in the United States. This is very different. I've never seen an election that's been this close and this contentious. American elections have generally been competitive, but people on both sides talk to each other. This one, there's real animosity. There's real almost hatred of the other point of view, lack of tolerance, not something that Americans are known for. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty close. I've only seen one forecast, a prediction, that has said that it's not going to be close, but that's the exception, not the rule. So, yeah, very different and very conservative.
What do you think are the biggest issues in this election? Jobs, the new abortion issue, unemployment, all these are issues in these elections?
They're all issues, but I think the big issue is democracy. I think people are really concerned about preserving our system. Americans want to keep what we have had for 250 years, which is a way for individuals to have their voice heard and to have free and fair elections. And I think that there's real concern that that's actually a threat. It's in danger.
And who do you think, sir, is going to win? If it's so tight between Trump and Kamala Harris, do you think the country is ready for a woman president for the first time?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think the gender has that much to do with it, and I certainly hope Harris wins, not just as the individual, but as my friend here said, for the continuity of democracy in our country. Very afraid what the other outcome might be and where it may lead us.
So if Mr. Trump loses in this election, do you think he'll accept it? Last time he didn't.
I don't think it really matters if he accepts it. I think the rule of law will prevail and will endure, but we may have some difficult transitions.
On the other side of this break, CNN News 18 goes to California and San Francisco on the West Coast, which is the backyard of Kamala Harris. With 54 electoral votes, California is the biggest state in the US elections and perhaps also the most important one. This is a Democratic stronghold, so much so that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris don't even bother to campaign much here because in the last 4 to 5 elections, the Democrats have won the state in a big way.
This is going to be a very tight race until the very end.
Supplementing the Democrats' campaign there this time is that Kamala Harris is a Californian girl. She was born here, not far from here at Oakland, and after that she went to the UC College of Law in California. She went on to become the Attorney General of California before representing California in the Senate from 2017. Now she's the presidential candidate, and the Democrats are hoping for a big head start from the state of California in these elections. We are here at the Golden Gate in San Francisco, and this is also the melting point of the Indian American community, the IT techies who come all the way from over the world to work here. We'll try and speak to some of these Americans and know about from them what is their view on the US elections. What do you think are the big issues in this election, and who do you think maybe has the edge?
Well, for me, the big issue is the danger that Trump poses to our democracy. I mean, for me, that's the number one issue, and I think, people are very frightened because his presidency was marked by so much corruption and chaos.
It's a disaster for our country.
And I just fear that if he gets back into the White House, there will be no guardrails, as everybody says. So that's the first number one issue. And then, of course, the issue of rights and freedom, especially for women. That's an issue that I'm very concerned about. And I think that if he and the Republicans take over, they will definitely try to pass a national ban on abortion.
And that's a big issue. I think the abortion issue, we've heard from many women, in fact, that's a major issue in these elections.
Yes, I would say, first of all, it's incomprehensible to me that people are going to vote for Donald Trump. It's just incomprehensible. He's a thief. He's a liar. He abuses women. I could go on, but I won't. And I will say, as a woman, I am just appalled at his behavior in the past, the way he condones more than inappropriate behavior on the part of others. And as Richard said, I think he's a threat to democracy. I think he will try to stay in office longer than our current laws about term limits permit. And I think his actions on the Supreme Court have been hideous. So I'm in there for Kamala.
Let's make sure we, here in the United States, elect our first woman president in Kamala Harris.
Before she entered politics, Kamala Harris had cut her teeth at law, and we are at the UC College of Law in San Francisco, from where Kamala Harris had actually graduated in the 1980s. She went on to become the District Attorney of San Francisco and also the Attorney General of California before she entered politics in 2017 by becoming the Senator from California. Her supporters say that her background in law helps her make cogent arguments when she's now fighting for the post of the President of the United States of America. Can Kamala Harris argue her way with such cogent arguments against Donald Trump into the minds of the voters of the US? Well, her legal background is giving her an edge here because she speaks in a measured tone and also is taking the discourse forward on key issues like the LGBTQ issue, as well as her stand and that there should be no federal ban on abortions. Unemployment and inflation is a big issue in the US election this time. We are in San Francisco and you can see these hotel employees protesting, they say since many days, asking for better wages, complaining that the inflation is so high, but the wage is not rising in correspondence with the inflation which is being seen in the US. And when you travel across the US, this is something that you hear very often, that the gas is expensive, every foodstuff is expensive, the grocery is expensive, and this is something that Donald Trump is planning to change, at least promising to change, saying that he will reform matters, he will bring the inflation down, and even in many parts of America, there is some resonance with what Donald Trump is saying on the issue of inflation, on the issue of unemployment, and on the issue of stopping illegal migration. We are in Folsom with Chuck, whose house proudly has a poster saying that he backs Trump in this election. So why do you think Trump is good for America? Why do you think he should win?
Well, he's extremely strong on the border. I believe in his border policies about having border restrictions, border control, plan control. I believe that he is the right person for our economy, being a businessman, successful businessman. He knows how to run an economy, and he's shown that in the past, in his past presidency, that he can balance our budget. He can, again, help us with our border, help us be energy independent, and we do definitely need to open up the Keystone Pipeline again and start drilling more for our own resources. We have enough here in this country without buying it from other countries. That's just that's not good for anybody. So I believe that lowering all of the gas prices, all of everything in our economy, all of our economy has taken a hit since COVID.
Yeah, I think that is the inflation and the economy.
Yes.
I think are major issues in this election. Do you think the Biden has not been able to handle it at all?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't shown that he cares. Also, Joe Biden doesn't really care about the wars in the Middle East. He doesn't care about Gaza Strip. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about Ukraine and Russia. He doesn't care about anything. And I believe that Donald Trump is the person that's going to get us back on track to get back to where we need to be.
In the US, when you come to Sacramento, which is the capital of California, this is Democrat strong territory for many years, California, but there is a lot of voices now this time in the favor of Donald Trump and the kind of government he ran 4 years back. We are with Len. And Len, what do you find in the US elections? What do you think are the biggest issues this time in the US elections?
This time of the year for the election, I would have to say immigration, obviously the economy, and now I think we're entering into maybe the world diplomatic scene. Would probably, I would say, would be the most important at this point.
You think the two wars which are going on are going to be important? Who becomes the next president of the US to address this situation?
Absolutely. I think we're right now at this time with the current administration, we're getting slow walked into possibly a world war. And nobody seems to be at home at this point. So this is very important, I believe. And I think the American people agree.
Yeah, I remember Donald Trump saying that if he comes to power, both these wars will end. He said that during his campaign as well. Do you think that has resonance, that Trump can handle this situation better than Joe Biden?
Absolutely. I think Trump is a hands-on diplomat. He will meet with his enemies. He keeps an open line of communication as opposed to no communication in the current administration that we have today. I think he's got a proven record of success and expressing the American views worldwide.
Kamala Harris, a woman, there's a lot of talk about the first woman president maybe. Do you think Donald Trump can do it? Because Donald Trump sometimes is seen as a bit, erratic. Sometimes, he's impulsive. While Kamala Harris' camp is seen as very pragmatic, very, structured about itself. Do you think the American public likes that, or do you think they like Donald Trump's style?
I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I think now, as the current Harris-Biden administration has been in fruition, they're realizing that basically they have no policies. It's all about the elite, and I think they think that even though Trump is a little rough around the edges, I think that they want a leader. They want somebody to get control of the economy. They want somebody to do something, and somebody that has the American people's interests in mind as opposed to maybe a world interest or what the elitists Harris-Biden think is best for the American people. And the American people are tired of it. We have our own opinions. We want to have a say in our government.
Elections in the United States of America are on the razor's edge. The two candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, are engaged in a very bitter battle. What is working for Donald Trump on the ground here are issues of economy, the issue of inflation, as well as the immigration issue. On the other hand, for Kamala Harris, what is working on the ground amongst voters is preserving democracy, as well as the very, very important issue of abortion. Which side this battle will ultimately weigh on depends on how the campaign of the two candidates pan out in the next 3 weeks. As it is said in the United States of America, it is the last week which usually determines which side the fence-sitter voters will go towards. But the battle is very much on in the US. Nobody can really say who will win, though some pundits here are saying that Kamala Harris has a slight lead. But I think amongst the voters, the battle is still very wide open. Coming up next week will be the second edition of the Race to the White House with CNN News 18 Live from New York and Delaware.